Hi, everyone. Welcome to Winona's webinar. I'm Dr. Brown. I'm one of the Winona doctors in the state of Pennsylvania. I also take care of patients in the state of Florida. I met Dr. Green because we both worked as OB hospitalists, and he invited me to help him with this Winona project. I love taking care of women. I've dedicated my entire career to women's health. And I'm from the Philadelphia area originally. I was in the Army for 12 years, so I moved around a little bit. So I've lived in Hawaii and Texas and North Carolina, but landed back in Pennsylvania close to family. So here to answer your questions. I know that our webinar tonight is for our current patients. It's an open Q&A. So if you have some burning questions and you have some issues you want us to talk about, please start putting your questions in the chat box. I'll let Dr. Green introduce himself as well.
So hi, my name's Mike Green. I'm the Chief Medical Officer for Winona and an OBGYN as well. And we're really excited to be here to answer your questions. So the key of that is answer your questions. So please type your questions in. Otherwise, you're just going to hear us chatting back and forth. So a lot better if we can answer your questions. So I usually start off with just a little thing, mostly to give you guys time to put some questions in. There was a really big article that came out recently in JAMA Neurology, which is kind of a big journal. And what it showed was that women that start menopause early have a higher risk of Alzheimer's disease, and women who start hormone replacement therapy late have a higher risk of Alzheimer's disease. So if you turn that around, what that really means is that if you start your hormone replacement therapy early, it decreases your risk of getting Alzheimer's disease, which is really a great benefit. Particularly for these women that start menopause on the earlier side, it can be really tough because unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there, meaning your doctors and other healthcare providers, that may not realize that menopause can start so early. And unfortunately, we see a lot of patients that sort of felt like they got brushed off by their regular providers. Like, oh, you're only such and such an age, you're 40, or you're only 42, this can't be that. But it can. So 15% of women complete menopause by the age of 45. And symptoms typically start, here's Angela, 7 to 10 years before menopause completes. So that means you could be in your mid-30s and start having these symptoms of menopause. And now we know, at least for the Alzheimer's, we already knew this for heart disease, but the earlier you start that hormone replacement therapy, the more beneficial it is to decrease these long-term problems. And also, incredibly importantly, it's good for relieving your symptoms while you're going through it. So you might as well make the menopause transition more simple. So, a lot of good reasons to think, hey, maybe this is menopause transition symptoms, and maybe I should think about hormone replacement therapy benefit you in the long run. So hopefully that gave you all enough time to type some questions.
Oh yeah, it's filling up with questions. I see it now.
Fantastic.
Welcome, Angela. We missed you.
Technical glitches today.
Oh my You're all fuzzy.
I know. I need to figure out what's going on with this. All kinds of things are happening. So
you have like a dreamlike filter.
It's like I'm here, but not really.
I was about to put my old person glasses on.
Oh my God. No, I thought the same thing. I actually cleaned my glasses before this because I was seeing everything blurry, and then I look at this and all I can see is like blurred versions of me. So
why don't we get started and answer some folks' questions?
Okay, great. Let's see. Oh, we have all of our announcements about technical difficulties. That's good. All right, we have a question from Elizabeth. She would like to know, does estradiol build up in the tissues over time?
You want to take that one, Dr. Green?
So yeah, the answer is not really. It takes a while for drug levels to come up when you start hormone replacement therapy. So it can take really a couple of 2-3 weeks, depending on which type of hormones you're using, for that drug level to really come up to what we call steady state. And so there is sort of a slow buildup. And then the nice thing is that it takes a while for it to go away. So it has kind of a longer half-life, which is why you're able to dose it once a day. And so once you get to that steady state, once a day dosing works quite well. And it becomes sort of less important what time you take it. But it's not like if you're on it for 5 years, all of a sudden there's all this estradiol buildup in your tissues. It doesn't really work that way. So the hormones do continuously get cleared by the liver and eventually metabolized, and your body gets rid of it. So that's why you do have to take it every day to make up for the fact that it's getting broken down. And so there's this sort of equilibrium where you get to the point where you're taking a certain amount every day and a certain amount is getting broken down, and you reach this steady state and you get a nice stable dose. And so your body does take care of it. It doesn't just build up.
Okay, we have another question. Someone who is currently taking 200 milligrams of progesterone cream with Winona. They're having very heavy periods that are lasting for a shorter time. Progesterone cream is helping the heavy bleeding and cramping slightly, but the iron that they have is low. They were told to use, along with progesterone, Mirena IUD to help with bleeding, and this would help elevate my iron. Would that be advised, or should I higher the dose of my progesterone?
Well, so the Mirena IUD is embedded with progesterone itself. So using progesterone cream plus using the progesterone in the Mirena IUD might just be a lot of progesterone for your system. We do use the Mirena IUD to treat heavy periods because it helps to stabilize that lining. But over time, as your body gets the progesterone on board, that should also help with that. So I guess I would discuss this with your Winona doc if you're one of our current patients. It might be worthwhile to discuss whether or not you should be using estrogen with your progesterone, just to see if we might be able to tweak your dosage a little bit better to get that bleeding under better control for you. But I would kind of question doing the Mirena plus the progesterone cream. I think that maybe one or the other, but I would talk to your individual doctor about it. Did we lose Angela? Are you back, Angela?
I'm here. I'm just trying to make myself less blurry. It is not working. I do not know. This is not great, but
that's okay. One night I was doing disappearing acts, and so now you're fuzzy tonight. It's all good.
Yeah, this is just the pleasure of working with technology. Okay, we have a question. Well, it's a general question. It just asks, how long does perimenopause and menopause last?
Well, that's unique for every woman. So, we know the average age of menopause in the United States is around 51, 52. Some women can have symptoms for up to 10 years before that. Some women go through menopause earlier in their mid 40s or late 40s, and still they can have symptoms for up to a decade before that. So every woman is unique. We tend to follow patterns in our family. So if you know other women in your families that have gone through natural menopause, you might follow in the same pattern. Not always. But we can't really, it's not something that we can predict and we can tell you what to expect. Every woman's experience is unique. And we really can't say that you've gone through menopause until you have really gone 12 months without a period. So, it's kind of a retrospective diagnosis. We can't say, tomorrow it's going to happen now. I wish we could. If we had a crystal ball, medicine would be a whole lot easier, but we don't.
Okay, I skipped over a question, so apologies. Carrie would like to know if any of you could speak to or speak about testosterone and if we prescribe that hormone.
So we don't technically prescribe testosterone directly through our platform because testosterone is a controlled substance. So testosterone is used by the bodybuilding community as a performance enhancing medication. And so it's highly regulated. But the way we do prescribe testosterone indirectly is by prescribing DHEA, which is a hormone supplement that when your body digests that, it breaks it down into estrogen and testosterone. So it's a gentle way of increasing your testosterone levels because we still do need testosterone as women. We have our female hormones, but we also have some testosterone, which is responsible for libido and helps with our metabolism. So that's the way that we can indirectly improve your testosterone without prescribing it directly.
Okay. Our favorite friend Dawn has a question. She would like to know, does HRT provide me with all of the estrogen that my body was making on its own before my ovaries were removed? I just want to make sure my body is getting enough estrogen since I'm younger.
Well, so, it may not be the same amount of estrogen as maybe when you were in your 20s or your 30s. When we give hormone replacement therapy, the goal is the lowest dose that's safe to give you for the shortest duration, possible. Mainly because we want to maintain safe levels, and we don't want to add risk to you. So we don't want to give too much estrogen. But when you've had surgical menopause, if you've had ovaries removed, it's important to give you enough that helps you to get the benefits of the estrogen for the protection of the heart, protection of your bones, and really to give you an adequate level until your body would have gone through natural menopause on its own. So I don't know if you want to add to that, Dr. Green.
Yeah, pretty much what you said, I totally agree with. The goal isn't necessarily to kind of replace you milligram for milligram. The goal is to get your symptoms under control. And my experience is that women that have surgical menopause, especially when they're younger, when they have both their ovaries removed, tend to require a lot more hormone than women that go through menopause naturally. And I think it's sort of that slow, steady decrease. So most women, when they're in the perimenopause, the ovaries are still making hormone. They're just not making as much, and they're not making it as efficiently. So we just have to add extra. But when you've had both your ovaries removed, all of a sudden you've completely basically shut off your estrogen producing factories. And so we've got to kind of give you all that stuff that your ovaries would have been making. But I think, it's not a sort of milligram to milligram equivalency. So it's not exactly the same amount as what your body was making. But again, the minimum amount that takes care of your symptoms is really what we're after.
Right.
Great. Okay, we have a question. This one wants to know, going through perimenopause has changed the shape of my body, large breasts, out of my arms, hips, the buttocks area. Is this due to estrogen dominance? How do you eliminate estrogen dominance or balance your hormones? And why do some doctors say that they don't believe in estrogen dominance? Got like a three-parter.
I think
So both Dr. Green and I are smiling because first off the bat, estrogen dominance does not exist as a diagnosis in the medical community. So we get a lot of questions about that pretty regularly, right, Dr. Green? Don't you see that a lot from patients?
Yeah, no offense, but estrogen dominance is often a red flag that somebody's been under the care of someone who thinks they know a lot and doesn't quite have it right. Not always, but that's why we're both smiling, because it isn't really a medical term or medical diagnosis. People have sort of used this phrase, and honestly, I've tried to figure out exactly what people really mean by this, and I think I'm not sure. I think there are situations where the uterine lining is seeing predominance of estrogen. Polycystic ovarian syndrome is probably the best example of that. And so I guess you could call that an estrogen dominant state, although again, that's not really a medical term. So that's one way I could kind of wrap my brain around, okay, maybe that's what people are talking about. But it doesn't really make sense when we talk about perimenopause and the menopause transition, because really the primary problem in the menopause transition is a decrease in estrogen. So this idea of being estrogen dominant and being in perimenopause can't really exist together. It just doesn't make sense. So and no offense to you, but that kind of triggers us sometimes when we hear those words. So that's why we're both laughing. We're not laughing at you. It's just a term that's sometimes a little frustrating, because trying to understand and communicate well what someone means when they say estrogen dominance can mean something totally different to someone else, because it's not really a defined medical term. So that's sort of the frustration that we have with it, I think. But that doesn't really answer your question. So let's go back to what your question was. I know. Is this because of estrogen dominance that changes? It's the opposite, actually. So the body changes that women see as they go through the menopause transition is primarily from a lack of estrogen, not from an abundance of estrogen, because that's the main change that happens. There is also a decrease in testosterone, and that has some effect as well. But it's really the estrogen, if you're going to call a dominant, is a dominant hormone that decreases. So the real issue is a lack of estrogen, not enough estrogen. And that's why the treatment almost always includes estrogen replacement. Progesterone is added on for women that still have a uterus to protect the uterine lining. because estrogen can promote growth of the uterine lining, and you need to balance that. And so progesterone is used to balance that if you still have a uterus. It's really rare that you would just need progesterone alone to really treat symptoms, and it almost never really works well. And so really the primary issue is that there's not enough estrogen around. So perimenopause is basically never an estrogen dominant state, and it's really the lack of estrogen that's primarily causing these body changes. Would you agree with that, Dr. Kat?
I agree.
Okay, we have a question. I started the bioestrogen a month ago, began bleeding like crazy a few weeks ago, 2 weeks after my sporadic period. How normal is this, and how long will this be?
So it's very, very common for women starting HRT to have abnormal bleeding within the first few months of starting, or even within the first, bit after changing doses, sometimes even. So, your body has its own hormonal environment. And when we add in a medication, it can kind of throw things off kilter. It can kind of change the sequence of what your ovaries are trying to release on their own. So as a result, you can get spotting. Sometimes you can get a period that's completely off kilter, that's like a full-blown menstrual period that's just off with timing. And what we need to do is give your body some time to acclimate to the hormone and to get used to the hormone being on board, and this will go away. But it's very, very common. Don't get alarmed. Many, many patients see this. I don't really worry as your physician until this has been going on for 3 months or more and it's not remitting on its own. Then I start to wonder, is there something else going on? But it's very, very common for women to experience it. So hopefully it'll go away for you.
Okay, we have a DHEA question. Someone would like to know, says, question to start in Philadelphia.
Philadelphia! That means it's my patient.
In the house. I'm about 8 to 9 years into menopause and just started DHEA 25 milligram capsules once a day. How long can I stay on them?
Really, there's no hard and fast rule as to how long you need to be on a medication or what's the minimum or maximum time. I mean, really, we want to make sure that we're treating your symptoms. And if you wanted to go off the medication at some point, we can try you off of it and see how you feel. But if you feel great on it and you wanted to stay on this the next 10 years, we certainly could do that. It's really about risk and benefits for each patient, and every few years or whenever your health changes, we should always reevaluate what medications you're taking. But if you do well with it and you like it, there's no reason that there's a time limit to that.
Okay.
Great answer from Philadelphia.
Yeah. From
Philly in the house.
From Philly for Philly.
Yes.
That's it. Okay. Carla wants to know, her medication is on the way. Are there any tips for immediate relief of intense hot flashes?
Well, so if you have really intense hot flashes, depending on what time of the day they occur, I mean, there's certain things you can do with your diet to try to avoid making the hot flashes worse. So, unfortunately, things like alcohol can intensify hot flashes. If you live in a very hot environment, you might want to crank your AC. Sometimes just opening the refrigerator may help, and just stick your head in there. Really, there's not a whole lot you could do except for getting adequate sleep, making sure you're really, really well hydrated. And honestly, eating a whole, well-balanced diet is probably your best defense naturally to try to mitigate your symptoms. Moving your body too is important. So daily exercise is important. So you want your body functioning at its best. So you want to put good food in it as fuel, and you want to take care of it well. So lots of, staying around the periphery of a grocery store, trying to stay away from all the preservative foods that are shelf stable for months. They're not great for you. So lots of fresh fruits and veggies, and lots of berries with good antioxidants are good. But yeah, moving your body, even walking is really good exercise. Yoga, just trying to take care of this body of yours will help.
Can I just add really fast on the note of diet and Dr. Brown? Winona is doing a whole segment on recipes that are going to be helpful for people in menopause. And Dr. Brown gave us her vegetarian chili recipe that I'm going to be making. So we're going to post it for you all to see if you want to make it, but we're going to have a bunch of recipes coming up in our next newsletter for everyone. So
I hope you like it when you make it. I've been making that since high school, literally.
I think it's going to be good. Plus, it's fun to, try somebody else's recipes. But I like the aspect that it's especially good for, it has all these good ingredients in it that are really menopause-friendly foods, for tips that people need when they don't know what to eat or what would cause, their symptoms to increase instead of decrease or what have you. So it's helpful information to have, but I just thought I would give a little plug to Dr. Brown since she gave us her favorite recipe. So, and Dr. Green, you're going to be next. We're going to hit you up for your favorite concoctions that we can make live on Instagram.
There you go. Yeah, I just made a pork butt. I sous vide it and then finished it on the smoker. It came out quite good, but not very healthy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that a menopause?
Good old Southern pulled pork
food,
sandwiches.
That's funny. Okay, well, sorry, I didn't mean to derail us. I just wanted to give a little side plug that all of our current patients should look out for their newsletter with menopause-friendly recipes also. Okay, so our next question is, let's see, does starting hormone replacement therapy cause your cortisol to rise temporarily? I have a cold, and the PA said that was probably the cause.
Interesting. Because colds are typically caused by cold viruses, so
you don't get a cold from starting any new medicine, or from going out without a coat on, or from getting wet, or all the things our mothers told us. Colds are caused by viruses, so you don't have a cold because of your HRT. Maybe she's saying that it temporarily dropped your immune system, but that's not the case either. So. Really, starting HRT should not, even at the beginning, in any way put you at risk of, an increased risk of getting a cold or a flu or other virus. So I respectfully disagree with that diagnosis.
We have a question about supplements. What supplements are important to take during progesterone? Important to take during progesterone and menopause.
Maybe she means perimenopause.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Either of you.
Well, there's a lot of supplements available out there. I mean, really, if we all had a perfect diet and we ate very well-balanced foods and got every color of the rainbow in our diet on a regular basis, we probably wouldn't need any supplements. But for me personally, I can tell you what supplements I take. That I started when I started hitting perimenopause, just because I did a lot of research and a lot of reading, and I started personally getting a lot of headaches when I started having hot flashes. And so I started taking a magnesium supplement just to kind of help stabilize that blood-brain barrier, just to help prevent headaches, and it helps a lot. I also take an anti-inflammatory supplement called turmeric, but that's also side benefit, also helps with chronic pain issues too. There's another supplement out there that a lot of menopause gurus recommend called resveratrol as well, which is supposed to be like a potent anti-aging supplement. Really, the important thing is do your research, read into things. There's no supplements that are absolutely required that are going to help you with the transition. It's all about what you feel like you need to take to kind of fill in the gaps. What I see as a doctor that a lot of people are deficient in, that I think everyone should be on a supplement for, though, is vitamin D. That's something that's very, very common. And almost every patient I've ever come across that I've checked their vitamin D level, it's usually low. So taking vitamin D supplements significantly helps, and that will help with your bone health too. But really, if you're going to do the research and you want to take a supplement, just make sure you tell your doctors exactly what you're taking, because the downside to supplements is that they can interact with some of your prescription medications. And so it's really important for us to know what you're taking so that we can safely advise you on what's safe to take with other things that you're taking. So
I would add calcium to the list.
Calcium and vitamin D.
Yeah. And honestly, here's the thing. This is my opinion about calcium. You might disagree. But your body is going to take calcium, is going to use whatever calcium you give it. And so there are some really expensive calciums out there. Personally, the cheapest and easiest way to get calcium is to chew a couple Tums every day. And that's basically just calcium. And it's true, I get a little heartburn, so I take Tums for other reasons, but I get mine at Costco for 2 giant things for under $10.
Gotta love Costco.
Yeah, so that's in my opinion, that's a way to do it. It's like, iron is the same way. You could chew on a rusty nail, and if your body needs iron, it would absorb it. Don't do that. But a lot of people make a lot of money off of some of these supplements when just a less expensive version will work just fine.
Yeah. And along those lines, I find that a lot of our patients, when they come to us to get HRT, are on a lot of very fancy supplement concoctions that they've gotten from like these little shops that are meant to be, hormone balancing. But then when I look at the ingredients, because I have patients send me a screenshot of like the ingredients of the supplement, and it's just so many random things that I don't really know why they're taking it. But, the label says, menopause balance or something or other. You just have to scrutinize, just like when you go to the grocery store, flip everything over, look at the nutrition facts, look at the ingredients. Same thing with supplements. You really want to know what you're putting in your body. So don't just take it because some star is endorsing it on the internet. Just scrutinize everything.
I've seen a few patients that are on so many different supplements. I'll message them. I'm like, that's got to be a full-time job just remembering to take all
Yes.
this. And it's got to be emptying your bank. There's just no reason for that. Really, you ought to be able to narrow everything down to a few supplements at most, I would think.
Okay. We have a question about pills versus cream. Why does the cream not seem to be as effective as the pill form? I started with the pill and then changed to the cream and had to change back to the pill as it was more effective for me.
Every patient is unique, and it's sometimes like trial and error is really what it comes down to. Some people that may have been on a webinar before may have heard me say this, but like trying medications and really trying dosages is really like trying on clothes. Like every woman likes a different fit, different cut, different style. Sometimes we try one medication, it may not work well for you, but we try another form and it works great. So you know your body best. And so sometimes it's just trial and error until we find what works best for you. It could be that the cream works great for another patient and the pill doesn't work for them. So every woman is unique.
Okay, we have another question. It says, I'm one of your patients and I've been on HRT vaginal cream on skin for 1 month. I take DHEA 25 milligrams daily. My issue is zero sex drive. It seems like the vaginal dryness and the penis is better.
So the zero sex drive, I tell my patients, one of the biggest, most important sex organs for a woman is actually the brain. So one of the first things that I always encourage patients to go back to is really some of the more relationship work and really communicating with their partner. There's a lot of good resources out there now. There's a website called OMG Yes, which is like all dedicated to sexual pleasure for women, and it's all legit information. And it's validated by physicians. There's also an app called Rosie that was invented by one of our OBGYN colleagues that's all about improving sexual health and orgasm and libido and all kinds of resources out there. But one of the big things I think is that we often, especially when we've been in a relationship for a long time, we kind of assume that we can just flick a switch, and when we have time that we're just going to be able to rev up. But if you treat your body like a classic car, you can't just turn it on and drive 100 miles. Like you have to warm it up. You've got to wax it. You've got to take care of it. Take it for a few spins around the block before you go on the long drive. You have to really work on that. And we very much as women have to be turned on mentally to be in it physically. So hormones are only part of the picture. We also could increase your DHEA. If you're only on the 25 milligrams, we could bump that up. So you can talk to your Winona doctor about that as well. But there's a lot of resources that you could explore to try to improve the sex drive. It's definitely something that's worthwhile and it's important for quality of life.
I skipped over a question. I get ahead of myself, everybody. So there's a question here. It says, I've been taking Winona by HRT and DHEA for almost 9 months. Is there anything my primary care doctor should know or look out for?
I mean, you want to share with your doctor what you're on. That's really important. And share with us if they put you on something new, so that everybody can do things safely, because we need to know what medications you're on. So you want to make sure that you let your primary care doctor know that you're taking HRT. There aren't any specific labs that need to be monitored. Really don't need to do anything outside of your normal health maintenance. I have a bit of a disagreement with some of the standards that are out there nowadays. I still think women should be getting a mammogram every year, but whether they're on HRT or not. And also, I'm not a big fan of how long we're spreading out the pap smears as well. So, everybody should see a doctor once a year to get a general physical exam. For a woman, that includes their female parts. For a man, that includes their male parts. So you still should see your primary once a year, probably get some, regular blood work. But there isn't anything specific that needs to be done differently because you're on hormone replacement therapy. But do let your doctor know that, because that's important information for them.
We have a question about hair. Will this therapy, help with hair breakage and
Yes. So generally when we replace estrogen, it really helps overall with skin, and hair is part of the skin. So generally we start to see that the skin becomes more supple, more elastic, the skin becomes a little thicker, and this should also happen to the hair as well. So it should help the hair cuticle become a little stronger. And so most patients may notice some changes and loss of hair, sometimes hair breakage, and usually that improves with HRT.
Okay. We have another DHEA. I always love when we get so many DHEA questions. I'm about to turn 60. I began menopause at 57, and I've been on DHEA for 2 weeks, first time user. I know DHEA has a cap of 2 years. What are we supposed to do after that?
So we talked about this a little earlier, that there really is no cap for how long you can be on it. I don't know where the 2 years came from.
There's a lot of disinformation on the internet, unfortunately, and even well-meaning friends and family, and sometimes well-meaning physicians that this isn't what they do primarily. There's no cap on the DHEA. You can take that as long as it's helping.
Okay. Next question asks, I haven't received my products yet, but I'm excited. Getting cream and DHEA. Admittedly, I'm a bit nervous about it. I just had another period after 120 days. Should I ease in or just jump right in with both heat and full doses?
Well, I'd say, that's a personal decision and something you can talk to your doctor about directly, but there's no reason why you should have to gradually, build up to the dose that we prescribe you. When we're prescribing the dose, we're basing that on your individual case, your medical history, and your body composition. And so we've prescribed a dose that we feel is safe for you. So it's perfectly safe to just go ahead and start that. Now, sometimes I have patients that start the full dose that I prescribe, and they might have issues with, adjustment or side effects. And sometimes in those situations, we might dial back to maybe doing things a little slower, but there's really no reason to start off slowly. You can actually take those full doses that we prescribe.
Yeah, I know that there are some people giving advice on the Facebook group about holding off and starting the DHEA a month after starting the cream or the pills, depending on which type of HRT you're on. And I think where it comes from is that occasionally, like Dr. Katz says, we have people that start and they have some side effects, and so we sort of dial back a little bit. And for them, they may need a little more gradual runway to get started. But for the vast majority of people, just starting on the regular dose right away works the best, because the sooner you start it, the sooner it starts to work. So I think good-meaning people on the Facebook group, for instance, have maybe had an issue. Their doctor told them to do it this way, so then they're sharing that experience. But that experience isn't necessarily the right thing for everybody. And so for most people, they should just start right away, start everything at once. It works best that way.
I'm so glad you're saying that, because it's so We have to say that so often to our friends in the women's group, like, please, like, if you want to share, just share, but also know that whatever advice is being given is specific to you. And, that's a tough one. I think all women want to know what works for everybody else because they hope it'll work for them. And,
I'm sure, people are well-meaning and, they have good intentions and, boy, this is the way it worked for me and they recommend it for everyone, but everyone's individual.
It's like what Dr. Kat was saying about trying on those clothes. Yep, same. Okay, so somebody says their hot flashes have returned since transitioning from, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, Viavolve, I don't know, it's FYAVOLV, 1 milligram - 5 mcgs to the WBIS 50/50 progesterone cream. What does this mean? Does my dose need to change?
I'm not sure what that medication is.
I just Googled it because I wasn't sure. And I'm still not sure. It says it's used for some women to help reduce symptoms of menopause, but I can't see. Let me see.
I'll look on Up to Date and see if it shows up on there. Yeah, it's ethanol, estradiol, and norethindrone. It's a birth control.
Oh, it's a birth control pill. Yeah.
Yep, it's ethanol, estradiol, and norethindrone. So
there we go.
Yeah. So the hormones are different. So, the birth control hormones are specifically formulated to prevent ovulation. They don't actually replace what your body is naturally producing from the ovaries. And so there might be an adjustment. And the doses in birth control are typically higher than what we give with HRT. So it could be that your body just needs to adjust, since you went from a birth control to taking HRT. And we might need to give your body some time to acclimate to the HRT, and then we might need to adjust the dose a little bit to get you better symptom control. But the HRT is actually safer for you than the birth control. So.
Good.
The other thing I've noticed is sometimes like I said, it can take a few weeks to really get drug levels. And so, especially with the cream, sometimes I'll recommend keeping the birth control for a couple of weeks and then withdrawing it just to try and make that transition a little smoother. But it's not surprising. And then some women, even just starting HRT, actually can give them hot flashes that they never had before for a few weeks, because as that estrogen levels start going up, the body interprets that as, a change in estrogen, and that can drive a hot flash until that steady state comes. So if you hang in there, it should get better.
Okay, we have someone who's been using cream for 2 weeks. They say, I've noticed my personality returned on day 4. Yay. However, I still have some down days where I still feel unmotivated. The night sweats are waking me up several times every night. I'm exhausted. How long will this last? Also, my libido is very low. All that back.
Well, so you've been using the medication for 2 weeks. Is that what she said?
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to give your body a little bit more time. I generally, when a patient is really suffering from a lot of night sweats, I usually ask them when they're using the cream, what time of day, because if you're really particularly having more hot flashes in the evening and more night sweats, it might be more beneficial to use the cream in the evening if you're right now using it during the day. So changing that administration time could help a little bit. And also just the other important thing with sleep hygiene, we are all so addicted to our devices. We're always on our phone, our computer, and on TV. And really the research has shown that you really need to turn off the screens for a good hour before you're going to try to go to sleep, because our brains are kept too alert by screens. So, just trying to do other natural things to try to really help with your, bedtime routine to try to optimize your sleep quality as well too could help. But I think we need to give the meds more time, because 2 weeks is still early on in the course. I think that you're going to see continued improvement with continued use.
Okay. Farnaz has a question. She says her started having heavy periods 2 to 3 weeks, 2 years, every 2 to 3 weeks, 2 years ago. Ever since taking 25 milligrams of DHEA and 0.5 milligrams daily, it has helped increase the time in between to about 5 weeks. I have more hair on my head and face. Is that expected?
So, yeah, go ahead.
The more hair on your head is good. Menopause itself can cause some more hair growth on the face, particularly like on the chin for women, just the hormone fluctuations. So, the dose of DHEA that you're taking should not be high enough that it's causing like male pattern hair growth. It's probably more related to the other symptoms, but I think that if your period time is spaced out and it's a little bit more regulated, that's a good thing. The increased hair on the head is a good thing too. So I would say it's expected. I don't know. I'd have to get more information about the hair on the face.
Yeah, but it definitely is supposed to, like, her periods are she's not having the periods so close together. Is that the result of the as well?
Yeah, no, that's good.
Okay.
Well, and the pumps of the cream, it sounds like too. She says 2.5,
yeah. Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yeah.
Yay. We like the progress. I'm always so excited for people who have progress. That's great. Okay. Anicia wants to know if it's advisable to take DIM along with HRT. What is DIM?
So DIM is a supplement that's sold that really kind of is it's marketed to supposed to help estrogen metabolism. I always forget what it stands for. It's like diindole something or other.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
I'd have to Google it. But what I've been advising patients, because I've had some patients come to me that are starting HRT and that are already maybe they were taking this DIM supplement for a year or two and having very limited results as far as their menopausal symptoms. My advice, because I don't really know how it's going to affect, how their body metabolizes the medications that I'm ordering, is I usually advise them to stop it. Just because I don't really want anything to get in the way of your success with the medication. And because the DIM supplement is something that I really have no idea what it's in. When you buy a supplement off the shelf, you really have no way of knowing what's actually in it. I'd like to take out as many variables as possible and make sure that the medication I'm giving you is actually being delivered.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Somebody says they went to the opening of Center for Female Reproductive Longevity and Equality in Novato, and they showed a direct correlation between menopause age and longevity. Has HRT/Winona showed any shift in this?
So HRT, there's very good data that women that start hormone replacement therapy, whether it's from Winona or from anyone else, before age 60 have a longer life expectancy than women that have never been on hormone replacement therapy at all. So hormone replacement therapy does improve longevity, and it also improves quality of life. So that's a double bonus, right? And that's kind of the goal, right? You don't want to live longer if you're going to live miserable. You want to live a longer, healthier, better life. And HRT helps you do that, assuming you're an appropriate candidate for it. So yes, HRT has been shown to increase longevity.
Okay, we have a question about cholesterol. Why does HRT increase your LDL cholesterol?
I'm going to punt that one to you, Dr. Green. So HRT is metabolized by the liver. And so it does, stress is kind of the wrong word, but it does, give the liver a little bit more work to do. And that revving up the liver can also affect the cholesterol changes in metabolism. We know that HRT that's given transdermally, that's a cream or a patch, actually has less effect on the liver than HRT that's given orally, and therefore less effect on your cholesterol. So that's the right answer on the test. The truth is, for the vast majority of people, it doesn't change your cholesterol enough to really be a factor. So I think it's extremely unlikely to have somebody that their cholesterol is fine and dandy, and then they use HRT, and all of a sudden they've got to go on a statin or medication for their cholesterol. You really don't see that. On the other hand, people that are on medication for high cholesterol, I don't think that their dose necessarily is going to need to be increased if they start HRT. So there is a small and probably statistically significant increase in these numbers, but I don't think they're particularly clinically significant. So there's a difference between what we can measure and what actually makes a difference in your life. And I think it's very unlikely for HRT to cause enough of a problem with your LDL cholesterol to make much of a difference. That's my experience. I think that's what the data shows.
Monica says she started at lower dose of estrogen than recommended and it's fine, but now she's getting more hot flashes again, and similar that this is what she experienced before HRT, to increase her dose.
Well, sometimes when you start HRT, your body is still producing some of its own estrogen, and as time goes on and as you continue to age, what your ovaries are releasing changes. And so it can be common to have to adjust the dose over time. Other things I look at too is if you're all of a sudden having more symptoms, I always ask my patients, has anything else changed in your life recently? Have you gone through anything major in your health? Like recent illness, recent surgery, stressful event? Are you sleeping okay? Because I don't want to necessarily change the dose right away unless I really think this is something that's, a consistent change that needs to be treated. If it's something that's only happened a few nights, I may not want to pull the trigger and change the dose just yet. But if it's been consistent, you're noticing a pattern, it's been going on, and there's nothing else that you can think of in your life that has really caused a change in your day-to-day schedule, then maybe it's time to adjust your meds. Just talk to your Winona doc. Just message us.
Shanna says she started taking Winona 2 weeks ago, yay, and she hadn't had a period in over a year, and now she's had it for a week.
Yeah. So we talked about earlier that, it can be very common to have irregular bleeding when you first start HRT. So don't be alarmed. This isn't the new norm. This is your body adjusting. And so, for women over 50, if you've gone a full year without a period, we can say you're menopausal. Sometimes for women in that 40 to 50 range, even if you've gone 12 months without a period, you may not fully be through that transition. So, it's always possible that you might still throw a period in here or there. Some people say you might need to go 2 years if you're under the age of 50 to really say you're completely through menopause. But, just keep an eye, just keep going with the medication, talk to your Winona doctor about it. But like I said earlier, we don't really worry about the irregular bleeding unless it persists for 3 months or more.
Someone would like to know if we treat men too.
Nope. We're for women only. Winona is for women only. So men typically don't go through menopause, unless they were born as a woman, and then they've transitioned and not had surgery to remove their ovary. So, but typically we take care of women only here on our site.
Okay. Someone is asking, is the patch more effective than the cream? It is more expensive, so I'm thinking it may work better. I just started the cream, but it's a low dose and it's not bleeding.
So personally, I don't know why anybody uses a patch, quite honestly. I guess some people like it. But the reason the patch is more expensive is that we have to buy the patch from wholesalers, and they're expensive on the wholesale market. The cream we actually make ourselves in, Dr. Brown and I don't make it, but our pharmacists compound it themselves in our Winona pharmacies. And so because of that, we're able to keep costs way down for the cream and really provide them at a much lower cost than having to buy somebody's manufactured patch on the wholesale market. So that's the reason the patch is more expensive. Patch doesn't work better or worse. For some people, as Dr. Kat was saying earlier, one works better than the pill might work better than the cream, or the cream might work better than the pill, the patch might work better. Everybody's different. But there's no big advantage to the patch or the cream or the pill for that matter, except I think to me personally, and I shouldn't project onto other people, it seems annoying to have to wear a patch all the time, but that's just me. But
I would add though, every once in a while I get a patient who taking the pill or using cream is a once application and done. Sometimes several hours into the day, they notice they might have a resurgence of symptoms. And so those patients that seem to have a breakthrough of symptoms later in the day, sometimes using the patch, they have that more consistent absorption of the medication over time, so they have less of that. But yeah, it's really a matter of preference and what patients like.
Yeah, but if you look at the pharmacokinetics, once you get a steady state, sorry to use the medical terms, but since we're doing a little medical debate, I don't think it really, once you get past that steady state level, I don't think the dosage, the continuous dosage of the patch really provides a big benefit, or even really any benefit to drug levels over the cream or the pills, but that can be argued.
Although I had a patient recently who had to take her dog to the vet. Her dog started getting increased, mammary tissue, I guess because she was applying the cream, and then the dog would snuggle up and she would hug the dog. Oh. And the dog was getting some of the cream transfer, so she transferred to the patch, and it's much better. And now the dog is fine and not having any hormonal issues.
No, I've had a couple of patients where the dogs just love the taste of the stuff and try to lick it off of them. Then it's like, well, maybe you got to switch to something else. But
I don't think that's interesting.
The other thing is you can put it in your inner thigh or behind your knees. So there's different places to hide it, so to speak. People sometimes ask me if they're worried, their husband's going to get it, and I don't worry about my wife's cream hasn't affected me. So it's really completely absorbed within 30 minutes. And I mean, unless you're really snuggling away right after you put the cream on, it's pretty unlikely there'll be enough to transfer to worry about. But yeah, there have been some dog issues. But yeah, the licking seems to be an issue for some dogs.
Animals have such a weird thing with wanting whatever you put on your body. My cat likes to lick face cream off my face at night, and I'm like, why? It's so gross. But she's always like, ooh, what is that?
I love when my cat gives me little nose kisses.
But she only likes it when you put face lotion on. She's very funny. My other cats don't, but my old cat, she's all about the licking off your face cream. Okay, we have a question about, I think we had this earlier, any tips for intense hot flashes?
And we talked about that earlier with, healthy diet, taking care of your body, staying well hydrated, getting good sleep.
Here's an interesting question. Someone would like to know if either of you have any insight into why only human women and whales experience menopause.
So I didn't know that about whales.
Me neither. That sounds like a Jeopardy question.
Here you learn something new all the time at our webinars.
I mean, part of it is life expectancy. And we're fortunate to, live at a time when people live long enough that they're still useful past their reproductive age. Our life expectancy in the first world is so long that we get to the point where we outlive our reproductive potential, which is really a good thing. I mean, that certainly obviously has happened throughout history, but it's happening a whole lot more now, which I think is great. I'll throw a little tidbit if you want to hear something interesting.
Sure.
So it has nothing to do with menopause, but it does have to do with this subject. So if you think about in the, back in history, way back in history, a period of menstruation was actually a fairly rare thing because, women would get to the point where they were menstruating, they'd get married off, they start having kids, they'd breastfeed their kids. And as you know, you don't have periods when you're pregnant, and you have very few pregnancy periods when you breastfeed. And then they'd wean the baby, and all of a sudden they'd become fertile and they'd have another kid. And this would happen until, they basically weren't having kids anymore, and then they died at 40. A menstrual period back in those days was actually a fairly rare event if you think about it logically, which is kind of an interesting idea. It doesn't have anything to do with anything that we're talking about, but I just think it's kind of cool.
Going to throw a trivia at you this week and all the weeks going forward. We're going
I'm going to use that whale one.
We actually made a post of, I think, a little while back about mammals that go through menopause. Somebody else pointed that out, and it's interesting. I mean, it didn't stick with me till right now. Yeah, we made something about that, but interesting fact. Okay. Somebody has a question that says, I haven't had a period for 5 years, started on the cream 4 weeks ago, and my night sweats are gone. Yay. Wondering if I should be expecting any breast tenderness or spotting from this therapy. So far, I'm doing well. No weight loss, though. Hopefully it will start soon.
Well, every woman is different. I mean, some women get the breast tenderness, some don't. But in my experience, if you've been on the cream for 4 weeks and you haven't gotten breast tenderness yet, I think you might be good, because usually it happens early on. And typically the spotting usually happens within that first month or two, if it's going to happen at all. So, you might be in the clear that you might be able to skirt away from those two side effects. And weight loss is something that usually happens later, because your body has gone through a lot of changes, a lot of transition, and we're trying to return that hormonal environment to, more of a balanced environment. And so it may take a little time before your body starts to shed the weight. So it's something that you just need to give more time to.
Okay. We have a question about somebody else who's recently started their treatment. Sorry, I just scrolled past my spot. Give me 1 sec. Who wants to know what the difference is between actually progesterone and estrogen, where it's derived. Is it synthetically compounded?
So the estrogen and progesterone, actually, until recently, it was all yam derived. I actually just a week or two ago, I had a meeting with the pharmacy folks. Apparently there's this international yam shortage. And so there's been a bit of a scramble. They're all it's all plant derived. Most of what we have is still the yam derived, but apparently there's a shortage, so they're using other vegetables to derive it. But they're all plant-based and derived from natural plant-based sources. We don't use synthetic hormones at Winona. All of our hormones are either yam derived or other plant derived bioidentical hormones. But it's just kind of an interesting thing. It's like an international yam shortage. Who would have thought? But apparently that's a thing.
Okay, we have another question about someone who just started therapy recently. They're having major shakes and body aches today. I'm scared to take the treatment tonight.
You're getting a little choppy, Angela. I didn't hear.
Somebody just started their therapy last night, and they have major shakes and body aches today, and they say that they feel awful and they're scared to take it tonight.
That's a very unique reaction. I have not had patients experience that. So, I would wonder if there's something else going on, because just one dose of the medication on one day shouldn't cause that drastic of a side effect. It could be that you might have something else brewing. Maybe there's something else, on the verge, or maybe you're harboring a virus, who knows? But I would message your Winona doctor and just let them know how you're feeling. If this is the case and we think you might be coming down with something, it would be okay to hold off and give your body a couple days before restarting and retrying again. But I don't think it's from the medication, just in my opinion.
Okay. So I guess I'm getting notes that my Wi-Fi connection is not great, because it's cutting out for you and some other people.
You're better now. Like when you moved into the computer, you got better.
Okay, maybe I was too far away from the microphone. I don't know. Okay. So somebody's also asking, can you repeat the question? Okay, well, I'll do my best. Somebody else is saying, let's see, they just started cream and find themselves waking up at 3 a.m. When should I be using the cream, evening or morning?
I couldn't quite hear that. Sorry. She just started the cream and she's waking up at 3 a.m.
In 3 a.m. She wants to know, should she use it in the morning or in the evening?
For most people, it works best in the evening because it can help with sleep, and you get more sleep benefit from that. Occasionally, people have the opposite effect. Particularly the progesterone can sometimes cause these crazy vivid dreams in some people. And if for really a small amount of people, it can act like caffeine and wire you. So it's okay to experiment and try different times of the day and see what works best for your body. But sort of evening time or bedtime is usually our default recommendation. But it can take, a few weeks to really get into a good pattern and see how this is going to affect your body as well.
Okay. We have a question about time limits on HRT. Someone says their doctor told them you can only be on HRT for 3 years max.
Really not true. I mean, so there's no hard and fast rule for a time limit. So like I mentioned earlier, we want to do the lowest dose that you need to control your symptoms for the shortest amount of period of time, possible. But if you try to go off the medication and you start to have symptoms again, that means your body's not ready. So, there's no hard and fast rule that it's 3 years. That your doctor is making it very, very strict.
Okay. We have another question that says they've tried to transition from the estradiol patch to cream and it didn't work. That the estrogen level was only 5 and testosterone was 0 and progesterone was 0. So she's pretty depleted.
So we don't treat based on labs. That's the one big thing. So I don't know if those numbers, what kind of lab testing that was, but generally we like to treat based on your symptoms and to try to control your symptoms. We don't like to, change the dose of medication based on what a lab test shows, because your lab test could vary from day to day, whether or not you get labs done in the morning versus the evening versus the afternoon. So it's not as reliable to help us to guide the treatment. So it's more important as to how you feel, what is your symptom profile and has it improved with the medication?
And if you found that your symptoms didn't get better transitioning from the patch to the cream, it may be that you need a higher dose of the cream or more time for it to take effect. Again, it takes a little while for that cream to get good drug levels and really take good effect. So patience is hard, but it's important. Where they say, I want patience and I want it now, right? Or maybe that you need a higher dose of the cream to get good effect. But yeah, the labs aren't really the way to follow it.
Okay, we have another question asking about whether or not there are different companies that produce DHEA and the bioestrogen that represents Sensex. If so, do some products work better than others?
So let me take that. One of the cool things is that we have gotten big enough that we can sort of tell the manufacturers what we want. Well, first of all, for the bias cream, we make it ourselves. So there's only one source of that. We have 2 pharmacies. We have one in California, one in Idaho, but depending on which state you are, you're only getting it from one or the other. And they use the same recipe. And it's all the same people. So the biased all comes from us. We make it ourselves. So there's only one biased. So there really is not a difference in that. There was a small change, which I think almost nobody noticed. There was a problem with the base cream we ran into last summer. There was a supply issue and we scrambled to get enough cream, and then their supply came back. And then it looked like we were going to have another supply issue. So we transitioned to a different company that was able to basically guarantee us supply of the base cream. Because the last thing we want to do is say, oh, sorry, we ran out of medicine. We can't send it to you this month. That would be a nightmare for you and us. So we got a better source of the cream. All these things are proprietary. And so we were worried the cream may be a little bit different and people might notice a difference. I don't think many people did. But as far as the bias goes, there's really only one manufacturer that for what Winona uses, and that's us. The DHA is kind of cool, at least to me, because we're ordering millions of these pills at a time, which kind of blows my mind. But it gives us a lot of negotiating power. And so we have a manufacturer that we work with. We're a huge, company for them. A huge client for them, and so we're able to really make sure that we get really the highest quality DHA, and we get it in the small little capsules. And these are changes. If you've been with us for a long time, you've seen some of these changes where our capsules have gotten smaller and more convenient for people. And that's because we've grown big enough where we now can demand to get what we want. And so the DHA that we have right now really comes from one source, and it's a source that we have some control over. There have been, so we've been, this was our 2-year anniversary. We launched 2 years ago in April. And early on, we did have some sourcing issues with DHEA, and so sometimes they would look different because we get them from different sources. But our scale has gotten big enough now where it's pretty cool that we're able to, drive the market to some extent. And so we're able to get kind of from one source and really high quality DHEA.
We had a couple, I think some people put their questions in twice because they thought we weren't getting to them. So I was like, why am I seeing the exact same question? So I think people are just like, as the chat went, listed it again. So I'm going to skip over the ones that are exactly what we've answered already. I'm going to move to this question that says, I just got my products, but I have started on Ozempic. Is it okay to do both?
Yes, it's okay because the mechanism of the medications are different. So Ozempic, is, for those that don't know, is a medication that's an anti-diabetic medication that's helping patients to lose weight, especially if you have a history of insulin resistance. But it's safe to take if you're taking HRT, so they won't interfere with each other.
Dawn wants to tell us, this is not a question, but she wants to say how wonderful she feels and that she has not had a hot flash in like 2 years. She's so thankful that she found Winona. Yay, so are we.
Oh, and I see you posted the OMG Yes website. Good job, Angela.
Yeah, resources.
Every woman should save that URL. Like, just
yes, I gotta send my wife there.
Bookmark it. And I also made, if anybody asked, because last time we had some people asking about pricing, and Dr. Green was like, gosh, okay, we have this. So I asked our team to make a list so that if we have questions ever around our pricing, I can always just pop it into our chat as well. So
there you go. Perfect.
Giving the resources to everybody. Okay, I think we have, let's see, how many more do we have? A couple more, 2 more. Is progesterone cream only with 25 milligrams or 50 milligrams of DHEA going to be enough estrogen during menopause? Okay, wait, this is worded weird. Is progesterone cream only with 25 milligrams, I'm thinking there's like a comma here, and or 50 milligrams of DHEA going to be enough estrogen during perimenopause?
Almost certainly not, is my answer. Yeah, I don't know where this comes from, but there's this misguided idea out there that progesterone is like, I almost used a bad word, anyway.
Sorry.
Uh-oh, so you gotta go deliver a baby.
Not mine.
I always joke, when we're covering the hospital, my favorite doctor is Dr. Not Me.
Yeah.
Anyway, the progesterone, there's this idea that progesterone is like the bee's knees, I guess is a great way to put it. It's like all the thing for menopause, and it's backwards. And that estrogen is super risky and progesterone isn't, and that's backwards too. And so this idea that it's safer and more beneficial to try and get away with just progesterone is completely against what the science tells us. Estrogen is really the dominant hormone that causes most of the problems, and therefore replacing it the lack of estrogen is what causes most of the problems. And so replacing it is going to fix most of your problems. Progesterone has some benefits, but they're really, for most people, pretty minor. The big benefit of progesterone is that you need that estrogen-progesterone balance to protect the uterus if you still have a uterus, because giving just estrogen can overstimulate the uterus. So you need that balance with progesterone. The truth is, for women that have had a hysterectomy, that have had their uterus removed, we generally don't recommend progesterone. We recommend estrogen only, and it usually works great that way. And so I think you've got it backwards. If you're going to try and skimp on something, it's the progesterone you want to skimp on. In fact, 2 really big studies showed that hormone replacement therapy with estrogen alone did not increase the risk of breast cancer, but that when estrogen and progesterone were used together, there was a slight increased risk of breast cancer. So it seems to be progesterone to be more of the bad player. Not that it's dangerous, and that increase was small, but still, it seemed to be adding the progesterone that caused more of the problem than the estrogen. It's, for some reason, people have this backwards. And so I think you're looking at it wrong. Really, the idea would be you want the estrogen, that's what's really going to help you most. And then you want sort of the least amount of progesterone you need to keep everything safe. And so I don't think you're going to do as well with just progesterone and DHEA. The DHEA does make a little bit of estrogen, but the contribution is really pretty small. The DHEA is primarily used for the testosterone benefit. So if you really want to do the best, you're going to want to add some estrogen to that cream or some other way, rather than just relying on the DHEA. It's not going to give you enough estrogen, I think, to make a big difference.
I concur with that long statement.
We have a pretty easy question that asks.
Someone told me I over-explained things. Sorry about that.
It's okay, Dr. Green. I'm in your boat. I had some similar comment the other day, and I was like, "This is just how I am. I'm sorry." Lynn wants to know if her prescription's on an auto renewal.
Yes. Unless you specifically ask us for it not to be, our default is that we place it with automatic refills, so that, because we don't want you to run out of your medication. We don't really want you to go without medication. So typically there's a little, if you're using the cream, there's usually a little bit more in the cream in case you have a misfire or, something happens when you're trying to pump the cream on. But you should get your refills before that first cream finishes. That way you don't run out.
We have somebody who is asking about dreams. They're 5 weeks in and they're sleeping better, but they're having very colorful dreams, not necessarily complaining, just curious.
So maybe, your body likes the hormone and, you're I don't know. It's a good thing if you're having good dreams. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's probably the progesterone. If it's enjoyable, that's great.
Yeah.
If you're having nightmares, take it in the morning and that'll probably solve the problem.
Great. We have another person telling us they've started Winona 3 weeks ago and they're noticing weight gain. They started intermittent fasting this week and they want to know if they're wasting their time.
I lost that last part, sorry.
Are they wasting their time? Is it a waste of time to start intermittent fasting?
With taking their medication, how long did they say they're on their medication?
Only 3 weeks.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to ever tell a patient they need to fast or that they need to go through intermittent fasting. I mean, so everybody's body is different. We all have different body types. There's different body compositions. And I know that there's some patients and some people I know that they absolutely cannot miss a meal or they become hangry and difficult to deal with. So everyone's body is a little different. Now, if you want to experiment and you want to try that and see if it works better for you, go on with your bad self and try it. See if it helps. Some people do intermittent fasting and have great results. Other people try it and they don't do well with it. Just like some people do well with low carb diets, some people don't do well with that. So I'm never going to advise a patient on what specific eating pattern that they should do, except to tell them that they should be eating healthier food, more colors of the rainbow, more healthy, fresh fruit and vegetables. But because you can never get too many vegetables.
We have a question that is a follow-up to what Dr. Green said about the yam shortage. Someone says that it makes them really nervous that we're not using yams now, and they want to know what we are using.
So we are still using yams. Well, we aren't using yams. We're still using products that are derived from yams for the most part. We just can't guarantee that. But there are other similar root vegetables that are similar to yams that are used. I honestly am not an expert in the manufacturing process of exactly, how they do that. But, nobody is using that just yams because it's a shortage problem. But it's still being derived from some similar root vegetable. It just may not be a yam. We're not grabbing chemicals off the shelf and turning them into synthetic hormones, which is what is done for a lot of hormones. It's still being derived from natural plant-based products. They just may not be the exact species that we call yams. It may be a different root vegetable.
Somebody else is saying they also have crazy dreams and that they're up and ready to go to work at 2 or 3 a.m.
Okay, so that's not normal. So maybe Dr. Green mentioned earlier that there's like a subset of patients that get energized from taking hormones in the evening. And so that could be that maybe you're one of those people. So if you're using your medication in the evening and you're waking up in the middle of the night and you're like alert and ready to start your day, maybe you should transition to taking your meds in the morning, because maybe you'll get that alert side effect during the day when you really need it, not in the middle of the night when you should be sleeping.
Unless you have a paper route, and that's when you're supposed to get it.
Oh my gosh, paper route. I haven't thought about that in a really long time, Dr. Green.
My first job when I was 12.
Oh my gosh. That's true. Papers always arrive really early. Okay, the next question is Pamela. She says she's been on, she's been on the cream since early March. Will the cream help with joint pain and muscle aches?
So it should help with joint pain and muscle aches. So typically, a lot of those symptoms happen as a result of the loss of estrogen in your body. And so when we start hormone replacement therapy and you start to replace the estrogen, joint health gets a little bit better. So most patients do notice that benefit.
Okay. This is for both of you. Elizabeth says, a healthcare provider said to me that perimenopause and menopause is natural. It's not a disease, and I shouldn't take HRT. She wants to hear from both of you on how you would respond to that statement.
I mean, having a heart attack's natural too. So is
Sure. Having cancer is natural too. Should we not treat cancer?
Right. Just because something's natural doesn't make it good or bad. Rattlesnakes are natural, but you probably shouldn't cuddle up with one. Arsenic's natural. I wouldn't take that as a medication. So, the fact that something's natural doesn't necessarily make it pleasant or healthy for you. So why not better when you go through the transition?
I mean, there's along those lines, there are some women that when they go through menopause, they might have a couple days of hot flashes. They kind of breeze through it and they do great and they never need any medication, and good for them. I'm happy for them, whatever. But it's about quality of life. And each patient, you know your body the best. And so you have to weigh the risks and benefits of any treatment that you're going to consider. But if the symptoms are distressing to you enough that it's interfering with the quality of your day-to-day life, specifically, like you can't function, you can't get through the day. I've had a lot of patients that are professionals that it's interfering with their work life. It's interfering with their performance. And so why not treat that and get them to work, to function at their best so that they can be the best version of themselves? Why should they have to suffer unnecessarily? It's not really fair to tell a woman that sorry, it's natural, deal with it, Yeah. That's not very compassionate.
Not so much. This is our last question in the chat. Okay. Susan says her Winona doctor started her on the Biest cream and 25 milligrams of DHEA. After hearing some questions, should she ask to be on HRT as well? She's turning 60 soon and doesn't want to miss the health window. Guess
what? You are on HRT. That's what the Biest and the DHEA are. So the Biest cream is hormone replacement therapy. So you're already on it. So you're good to go. Okay. Anybody else who has a question, please put it in the chat. Otherwise, I think we're good. Just see if anybody else has anything else to say. And everybody, apologies that my Wi-Fi has been a fail.
You gave us a heart attack at the beginning because it was like, I don't know how to start the program.
Literally, Dr. Green and I were like in the room where we're like, I'm all over looking for a place to start the webinar. And we're like, where's Angela?
It was doing this really weird thing where usually you can enter the room to start, and it just kept sending me back out like I was a registrant to join as an extra.
Oh.
And I was like, it wouldn't give me the platform to join the room where I could see all your faces. I was like, I rebooted. Wow. I tried different browsers. It was just like, fail. No. I don't know what changed, but literally just on try 57, all of a sudden it was like, ta-da!
So thank you all for hanging in there and waiting for us. We're sorry about that.
Yes, thanks for your patience.
Yeah,
Yes.
I hope we delivered and it was worth your time.
Yeah. And there's also, well, we'll see how the replay is. Hopefully the replay won't also have the cutouts of the volume, but everybody who's here, if you want to revisit the replay, it'll be up on our YouTube channel, usually in less than a week, hopefully in a few days. So check out, and you can also, if any of you in the chat are curious, you can go listen to prior webinars if you've missed them, because we put them all on our YouTube channel and also on our social. We excerpt like good questions from the webinars. And yes, and I will add the YouTube channel link. Give me 1 second to have friends. But definitely check out those because there's so much information there, and our doctors are happy to answer your questions in the portal. If you haven't asked questions there and you don't know how that works, our YouTube channel also has a tutorial on how you can access your patient portal. So please check out the YouTube channel. I think that's everything I want to say, except for giving you the actual YouTube channel. And I want to make sure I don't give you the wrong link for that. But yeah, I think that's everything, everybody. Thank you all for coming and for your important questions.
So don't be shy about asking us questions through the portal. You don't have to wait for the next webinar. We want to answer your questions. A well-informed patient is, it's important. It's important for you to understand what you're taking and why, and what the expectations are. So don't be hesitant. That's what we're here for.
Yes, and if you would like to join the Winona Women's Group on Facebook, it's open to everybody. It's a private group, so you just have to answer some questions and basically agree to, be a polite human in the group and share some info. Let's try this link one more time. It's not my day-to-day, huh? But yeah, other than that, I mean, we have a lot. There's like over 6,000 women in the group. So everybody, please know that there are so many women there who are able to help, be supportive of what you're experiencing. We just want everybody to feel like they have a space to be heard. So hopefully you will join us there. If you haven't, please do. And let's try the link one more time, everyone in the chat for YouTube. How about this? There we go. I'll keep that up for a second in case anybody else.
Oh, it has a little @ sign. That's what was missing, huh?
Yeah.
Tried to be a show off.
Thank you. Well, either way, we have it, which is good. Information is good. And just keep check our socials. Always, this content is there for you, and the Facebook group and the patient portal. There's so many ways you can get the information you need and the questions you haven't answered, so don't hesitate. Reach out and tell your friends who aren't using Winona. We have a perspective webinar in 2 weeks. Dr. Kat will be here holding down the fort while Dr. Green has his birthday. So happy birthday in advance, Dr. Green. And Dr. Kat will be here to answer all your questions for your friends, your family, your cousins, your neighbors, all your people who you know in menopause who need help.
And our mammal trivia.
Yeah.
Right?
That's it. That is it. Thank you both.
Yes.
Thanks,
Happy
everyone.
New Year. Thanks for coming on tonight, guys.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great evening, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.